I was 17 when it happened. My name's Zach, and by then I had already learned the golden rule in our family. Keep your head down and don't rock the boat. Especially when it came to my mom. She was the queen of our suburban kingdom. Polished smiles at church, passive-aggressive texts in the family group chat, and a way of rewriting history so smoothly you almost believed it. Almost. My dad, quiet and worn down, mostly stayed out of it. My younger sister Maddie was her golden child. Dance recitals, honor roll, homecoming court, the works. Me? I fixed up my grandpa's old pickup truck and got a part-time job bagging groceries. That was apparently all the proof my mom needed that I was going nowhere fast. My grandpa, though, he always saw me differently. I used to help him with odd jobs around his property on the weekends, fixing fences, patching up the barn roof, even just raking leaves while he told me stories about how men used to do things. He was one of those guys who didn't say much unless it mattered, but he always made sure I left with a 50 in my pocket and a jug of sweet tea to take home. He never came out and said he was proud of me, but he didn't have to. He just was. Every year on my birthday, he'd handwrite me a card. Not one of those glittery ones from the drugstore. I mean real paper, folded in half, shaky handwriting, always with some kind of life advice. Don't borrow what you can't pay back. Listen more than you speak. Stand up when someone shakes your hand. And every time, there'd be a check inside. Nothing insane, usually 50 or $100. Just enough to fill my gas tank and buy myself a greasy burger without feeling guilty. I always thanked him. I never expected more. That year, my 17th, my birthday landed on a Sunday. My mom insisted on a family brunch at our house. I use that term loosely because what she really meant was that she and Maddie would pose for Instagram while I played host, reheating frozen waffles and making sure there was enough orange juice. Grandpa was the last to arrive. I heard his old Buick crunching up the driveway and practically ran outside, if only to get a break from Maddie's shrieking over a smudged eyebrow pencil. Grandpa looked tired. His gray cardigan hung looser than usual, and his face was more sunken, but his eyes lit up when he saw me. We hugged, quick and firm, and he handed me an envelope with my name written in his usual blocky print. I tucked it in my pocket and promised to read it later. He patted my shoulder and nodded, like he always did. Brunch was the usual performance. Mom flitted around refilling coffee cups and complimenting Maddie's natural glow, ignoring the fact that she was wearing more makeup than a YouTube beauty guru. Dad said maybe 5 words the whole time. When I finally opened the card at the table, I read the message, smiled at the familiar bit of grandpa wisdom. Work hard, even when no one's watching, and then unfolded the check. It was for $100. I blinked, surprised. That was more than usual, but not wildly out of character. I smiled at him across the table. Thanks, Grandpa, I said, lifting the check. This'll help a lot. You didn't have to. He frowned, confused. What check? I held it up. The birthday one. $100. That's really generous. The room went silent for a moment. Maddie paused mid-selfie. My dad shifted in his chair, but my mom's fork clinked loudly as she set it down and stood up. I'll get more syrup, she muttered, disappearing into the kitchen. Grandpa leaned forward, squinting. Zach, I didn't write you a check this year. I laughed awkwardly, thinking maybe he forgot. It's okay. I really appreciate it. No, he said slowly. I wired you money. To your savings account. A week ago. $100,000. You ever feel the air get sucked out of a room? That's what happened. Everything froze except for my brain, which went into overdrive trying to make sense of what I'd just heard. 100,000? That couldn't be right. He had to be joking. But Grandpa wasn't a joking kind of guy. I looked over at my mom, who was now standing in the doorway, pale and still, gripping the syrup bottle like a grenade. What are you talking about? I asked, voice cracking slightly. My savings account. I called the bank, he said, ignoring my mom's laser glare. Your dad gave me the routing info years ago. Said you were saving up for school, maybe a truck. Figured you'd need a real boost soon. So I wired it. Last Monday, I felt sick. I hadn't seen a single notification. No deposit. No alert. My bank app showed the same sad 3-digit balance it always did. I stared at Grandpa, then turned to my mom. She blinked, tight-lipped. That's not. I mean, we should talk about this later. What later? I said, louder than I intended. You knew about this? Zach, she said sharply, like I was a child again. Not at the table. No, Grandpa said. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the room like a blade. I want to know what happened to the money. I stood up, my legs trembling, and pulled out my phone. I opened my banking app again, double-checking every tab, every account, even the one I hadn't touched since I was 13. Nothing. No deposit. No trace. My mouth went dry. Mom, I asked, more quietly this time. Did you move it? She hesitated. Just for a second. But it was long enough. Then she softened her face into that carefully curated expression she always used when trying to seem reasonable. Zach, honey, you're still a minor. We're just holding on to it for you. It's complicated. You took it. My voice cracked again, but this time with disbelief. You actually took my money? I didn't take it, she snapped. I managed it. There's a difference. What does that even mean? It means, she said, crossing her arms, that I made a judgment call. One that protects your future. Your grandfather doesn't always think through these things. And I wasn't going to let that kind of money go straight to a teenage boy with no plan. Are you serious right now? I stared at her, stunned. That was mine. It's our family's, she said flatly. And I'm not going to sit here and be attacked for making a responsible decision. Grandpa pushed back his chair, slowly. He looked even more tired now, not just physically, but soul deep. Like something in him had cracked. I gave that to Zach, he said. Not you. Not your husband. Him. She didn't respond. She just stood there, arms crossed, mouth pressed into a line, refusing to look at either of us. Grandpa shook his head and turned to me. I'll get it sorted, he said quietly. I promise you that. But I already knew. I could see it in her face. She'd moved it, used it, maybe even spent it. And I had no clue where to begin finding it again. That was the moment the illusion cracked. The perfect family, the careful brunches, the polite smiles. I realized then how deep her control ran. How many lies had been dressed up as concern. And I knew, right then and there, this wasn't over. Not even close. I didn't say anything else. I just sat back down, heart pounding, stomach churning, staring at the check for $100 that she had probably written in Grandpa's name without him knowing. A distraction. A cover. That night, while everyone was pretending nothing had happened, I lay in bed with my laptop open, logging into every bank, every email, every financial account I could remember ever having. And what I found in the following days, well, that's when everything really started unraveling. I didn't sleep much that night. My brain kept circling around one thing. If Grandpa wired $100,000 and it never showed up, where the hell did it go? I kept going over it, trying to convince myself maybe it was just a mix-up, a delay. Maybe he typed in the wrong account number or the bank held it for verification. That made sense, right? I mean, I was 17. Maybe that triggered something. But no matter how many times I refreshed my app, no miracle deposit appeared. My balance was still $348.19. Most of it from last week's grocery shift and a few leftover birthday bills from relatives. The next morning, I waited for my mom to bring it up. She didn't. She hummed while folding towels and went on about Maddie's upcoming dance showcase like nothing had happened. I stood at the edge of the laundry room and just watched her. Calm, smiling, so composed, like she hadn't just casually stolen $100,000 from her own son. Can we talk? I finally asked. She didn't look up. We already talked yesterday. No, we didn't. You talked. I found out something huge and you just deflected. She folded a towel in half, then again, setting it neatly on the pile. Zachary, this isn't some dramatic betrayal. Don't twist it into something it's not. I swallowed hard. Did you spend it? That got her attention. Her eyes flicked up, just briefly. Excuse me. The money Grandpa sent. Did you spend it? There was a pause. Then she scoffed. Do you even hear yourself? You're acting like this is some criminal investigation. You're still a child. Your father and I made a responsible financial decision to safeguard a ridiculous amount of money that shouldn't have been thrown at you like a game show prize. So you did take it. She sighed and finally stopped folding. It's not in your account, no? And yes, we moved it into a secure family investment. It's doing more good than it would sitting in a teenager's savings account collecting pennies and interest. What investment? I asked, already dreading the answer. That's not your concern. It is if it's my money. Her voice sharpened. That money was gifted. And in this house, we manage gifts like that together. Your grandfather should have consulted us. Why would he need to consult you? I shot back. It was for me. He wired it to me. She set the last towel down, hands trembling just slightly. You're blowing this way out of proportion. No one stole from you. You live here rent-free. We feed you, clothe you, drive you to work when your truck won't start. That money is part of the family's future. And there it was. The family's future. Her favorite phrase. Translation, Maddie. I walked out before I said something I'd regret. But something in me shifted. That morning was the start of a slow burn. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I just stopped trusting her. Stopped assuming she had anyone's best interests at heart but her own. A few days later, I got curious enough to poke around. Not snooping exactly. But after dinner, I noticed her purse sitting on the sideboard while she helped Maddie stretch for ballet class. I glanced around and, heart pounding, opened it just long enough to see the front of her checkbook. The most recent carbon copy said, down payment, $87,000. My hands went cold. I snapped a picture of it and walked away like nothing happened. 2 weeks later, I found out what it was for. I came home from school to a big, sold sign staked in the front yard next door. Our neighbors had moved out months ago, and the house had been on the market forever. I didn't think anything of it until my mom greeted me with her usual bright smile. Guess what, she said. We're buying it. I blinked. What? She laughed. Next door? Isn't that amazing? We're going to turn it into a rental property. Or maybe an Airbnb. We haven't decided. But the market's picking back up, and it was such a good deal, we couldn't pass it up. I stared at her. You used my money to buy a house. Don't be dramatic, she said. It's an investment. And someday, when you're older and understand how finances work, you'll see how brilliant this is. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. You bought a house without telling me. With money that was meant for me. She rolled her eyes. Oh, please, Zach. You're 17. What were you going to do with it? Buy video games? Waste it on a truck with rims? That house will triple in value by the time you're 30. That's not the point. Then what is? I clenched my fists. You didn't even ask. You didn't tell me. You just decided it was yours. She went quiet for a moment, her smile faltering. Then she leaned in and lowered her voice. You live under this roof. You don't pay a dime in bills. Your grades are average. You're not getting scholarship offers. Maddie, on the other hand, is working her tail off every day in honors classes and dance and student council. She's earned our support. I blinked. What does Maddie have to do with any of this? She's going places. She has potential. And she'll need help soon. College applications, private coaching, maybe even a car. We need to think about what's best for everyone. I didn't respond. I just turned and walked away. Again, because deep down, I knew if I stayed in that room, I'd say something that'd fracture everything. That night, I did something I'd never done before. I called Grandpa. He picked up on the second ring. Zach. Yeah, I said, voice tight. Can we talk? We met at a diner on the edge of town, one of those places with cracked leather booths and a jukebox that never works. I told him everything. I showed him the bank screenshots, the checkbook photo, even the listing for the house next door. He didn't say much, just listened. At one point, he closed his eyes and took a long breath through his nose, like he was trying not to explode. I should have known, he muttered. I should have wired it straight to you. You tried, I said quietly. She got there first. He rubbed his jaw. That money was from the land sale. I've been holding it for years. For you. I didn't want you to start adulthood broke like I did. Thought maybe it could pay for college, or tools, or seed money if you wanted to start something. I just wanted to give you a head start. I swallowed hard. You didn't do anything wrong. No, he said. But your mother did. He paused, then looked me square in the eye. You want it back? I nodded once. Yeah, I do. He tapped the side of his mug. Then we're going to have to be careful. Smart. She's slippery when she wants to be. I could have cried, but I didn't. I just nodded again, harder this time. It was late when I got home. My mom was sitting in the living room with her laptop and a glass of wine, scrolling through real estate photos like nothing had happened. Maddie was watching TikToks in the kitchen, earbuds in, humming along to something that sounded like a chipmunk with auto-tune. I went straight to my room, locked the door, opened my laptop. That was when I started planning. I dug into county property records, pulling up the purchase details for the house next door. And there it was, listed under an LLC. The same one my dad used for his side projects that never seemed to turn a profit. It was a shell, a name. No actual company. No website. No employees. Just something my mom registered years ago for tax write-offs. But it was in my dad's name, not hers. That was interesting. I started keeping a notebook, tracking dates, statements, little things she said. I paid attention in a way I never had before. How she moved money, how she justified things, how easily she bent reality to fit her story. I didn't know yet what I'd do with it all, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't letting this go. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get worse, they told me the real reason they bought the house. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was out working on my truck when Maddie bounced over with a phone in her hand and a huge grin. "Guess what?" she said. I looked up from the oil pan. "What?" "They're giving me the house." I blinked. "What?" She laughed. "Not now, duh. But eventually. After it's fixed up. Mom said it'll be my place when I go to college nearby, so I can focus on school without dorm distractions. Isn't that amazing?" I stared at her. My heart was pounding. "You're getting the house?" Yeah," she said, like it was obvious. They said it just made sense. "I mean, you're probably going to move out soon anyway, right? But I'll be here. And it's such a cute house. I already picked my room." She skipped off before I could respond, twirling her phone in the air. I stood there, oil dripping from my hands, heart thudding in my ears. They didn't just take the money. They gave it away. To her. That was the moment. The moment it all snapped into focus. This wasn't just unfair. It was war. And I was done playing nice. I didn't say anything that night. Not when Maddie bragged over dinner about how they might knock down the back wall to expand her room. Not when Mom poured herself another glass of wine and mentioned that everyone makes sacrifices for family. Not even when Dad, who hadn't looked me in the eye since the brunch, mumbled something about how opportunities come when you least expect them. I just chewed my food and stared at the plate. I don't remember what we ate. I just remember tasting nothing. That night in bed, I stared at the ceiling for hours. My chest felt hollow and tight at the same time, like I'd been robbed of more than just money. I kept replaying everything. The brunch, the checkbook, the house, the smirk on Maddie's face. The $100,000 I'd never even seen. Not a penny. Gone. Just vanished into drywall and future hardwood floors. And worst of all, no one apologized. No one explained. No one even acknowledged it like it mattered. It was just understood. This was how things worked in our house. You obeyed. You didn't question. And if you were the less promising kid, you learned to settle for crumbs. I hit my lowest point 2 weeks later. It was Maddie's sweet 16. My birthday had been 2 months ago, just brunch and a few gift cards. No party. No decorations. My mom said it was a weird time of year, and everyone was too busy. But for Maddie, they rented out the event room at a lakeside restaurant. Lights, catering, a live DJ. She had a glittery silver dress and a professional photographer trailing her like she was some kind of influencer. I didn't want to go, but I had to. Mom said I needed to support the family. I wore my best button down and tried to stay out of the way. The party was crowded. Kids from Maddie's school, teachers, some of Mom's friends, even our old neighbors. Everyone was dancing, taking selfies, hugging Maddie like she was the second coming of royalty. I sat in the corner near the dessert table, watching it all unfold like I was invisible. Then came the slideshow. I didn't even know they'd made one. The lights dimmed. Maddie squealed. The screen lit up with baby photos, clips from her ballet recitals, school awards. That time, she met someone semi-famous at a dance convention. Every photo was perfect, curated, golden hour filters, and soft music. Then came the voiceovers, Dad saying how proud he was, Mom choking up, talking about how Maddie was the dream they always had. Even Grandpa had a clip, though I'm pretty sure they filmed it without telling him what it was for. He just said something like, "She works hard. I hope she stays humble." I wasn't in a single photo. Not one. There were family shots, Christmases, birthdays, vacations, but I'd been cropped out or skipped entirely. I saw my own elbow once. Maybe. And the worst part? No one else noticed. When the lights came back on, everyone applauded like they'd just witnessed a cinematic masterpiece. Maddie hugged Mom, wiping fake tears from her eyes. I got up and walked outside. I didn't even realize I was shaking until I leaned against the railing and felt my knuckles clench. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was like I didn't exist. That night, I stood in front of the mirror and said something out loud I never had before. I'm getting out. I didn't know how or when, but I meant it. I wasn't going to be a footnote in my own life. The next morning, I started the climb. Step 1 was getting back control over myself. I'd been coasting, half-assing school, wasting time online, clocking in and out of my grocery job like it was a prison sentence. I was still smart, but I'd stopped trying years ago. What was the point? In my house, no matter what I did, Maddie outshined it. But now I had a reason. I started staying late at the library, reading everything I could about money, investing, business, personal finance, even real estate law. I watched hours of free lectures online, took notes, made spreadsheets. I downloaded budgeting apps and began tracking every cent I spent. No more fast food. No more impulse junk. Every dollar was a soldier. I was going to build something. At work, I asked to pick up extra shifts. Then I asked the store manager if I could learn more, unloading trucks, managing inventory, helping train new hires. I wanted responsibility. At first he was surprised, but then he started trusting me. Within a month, I was basically assistant managing the back room. A few weeks after that, I got a raise. Not much, but enough to notice. At school, I asked one of my teachers if I could make up missed assignments. He said no one had ever asked him that in October before. But he agreed. I worked through every late paper, every half-finished lab, every missed quiz. I didn't tell anyone why, but my GPA started crawling up. Quietly. At home, I said as little as possible. Mom noticed the change eventually. One night, she cornered me in the kitchen while I was meal prepping a week's worth of turkey sandwiches. "You've been busy lately," she said, voice light. I nodded. "Studying? Working?" "Yeah." She tilted her head. "What's the sudden motivation?" I shrugged. "Just figured it was time." She smiled like she didn't believe me. "Good. Keep it up. It'll look good on scholarship applications. Maybe we can even." I cut her off. "Don't worry about it." She blinked. "About what?" "Scholarships. I've got it handled." Her lips pressed into a line. She didn't like that. I could tell. She liked control. Liked being the savior. Me being self-sufficient didn't fit her script. But she didn't push it. Not then. 2 weeks later, Grandpa called me. "I've been thinking," he said, "about what you said. About not seeing a dime." I braced myself. "I want to make it right," he continued. "I talked to a lawyer. I'm changing the terms of my will." My heart skipped. "What?" "I'm not going to live forever," he said bluntly. "And I'm done trusting your mom with anything related to money. You're getting the farm." I froze. "Grandpa, no arguments. I've already started the paperwork. It'll be held in trust until you're 18. But it's yours. That place was built by our family, and I'll be damned if it becomes some Instagram photo op for Maddie's engagement party." I didn't know what to say. I'd grown up on that land. The barn, the creek, the little shed where Grandpa kept rusted tools and stories from the war. It was the only place that ever felt like mine. And now it was. "Thank you," I whispered. He grunted. "Don't thank me yet. We're going to clean it up, fix the roof, maybe plant a proper garden. You'll need help. I'll be there this weekend." Good. From that moment on, every free minute I had went into rebuilding that farm. I cleaned gutters, hauled junk, painted walls. Grandpa showed me how to install insulation and check for termite damage. We patched up the barn roof together while listening to old jazz cassettes. And while we worked, he taught me more than I'd ever learned in school. Not just about carpentry or tools, but about people. How to read contracts. How to see through polite lies. How to trust your gut. That place became my sanctuary. But I didn't tell anyone at home. I didn't tell them that the land was being transferred to me. I didn't tell them that I'd started an online business reselling refurbished tools I picked up at auctions. I didn't tell them about the part-time internship I landed with a local contractor who liked my hustle. I didn't tell them anything, because they weren't entitled to it. They never once asked me how I was doing. They didn't notice that I was gone more often, that my bank account was slowly growing, that I was getting stronger, more confident, more grounded. They didn't see the change, because they weren't looking. Maddie was too busy shopping for new furniture for her future house. Mom was too busy showing off that they owned 2 properties now to her book club. Dad was still drifting in and out of conversations like always, a ghost in khakis. And me? I was building something. Slowly, quietly, but with purpose. And deep down, I was waiting for the right moment. The moment when I'd stop being invisible. The moment I'd pull the rug out from under all of them. Because the truth was, I wasn't just rebuilding myself. I was laying the foundation for something bigger. Something they wouldn't see coming. It started with a spreadsheet. Simple, clean, titled in all caps, Reclamation Plan. I opened a blank Google sheet one night, after everyone had gone to bed. The house was dark, quiet. Except for the faint hum of my laptop and the ticking of that annoying wall clock my mom insisted tied the dining room together. My hands hovered over the keyboard as I thought about what I was really trying to do. This wasn't about money anymore. Not just money. It was about power. Because that's what they'd taken from me. My autonomy. My voice. My place in the family. They'd buried me under fake smiles and golden child Instagram captions, under brunch photos and property deeds, and he's just not focused whispers. But they forgot one thing. I was watching, listening, learning, and I was going to take it all back. That spreadsheet became the blueprint. Tab 1, Timeline. I listed every major event since my birthday. The date Grandpa said he wired the money. The brunch. The check. The day I saw the checkbook. When Maddie said she was getting the house. Every little moment where something shifted. I wanted a record, not just to keep things straight, but because it reminded me this wasn't paranoia. It was a pattern. Tab 2, Evidence. Screenshots, photos, transcripts. I documented everything. I had pictures of the carbon copy from Mom's checkbook, bank statements from Grandpa's wire transfer, emails, texts, even a voice memo I secretly recorded when Maddie bragged about her future house again. I uploaded it all to a secure drive under a fake email account, separate from my usual accounts. Passwords changed. Two-factor authentication turned on. I was leaving nothing to chance. Tab 3, Leverage. This was the fun one. It started empty, but grew quickly. My first major discovery came by accident. I was helping Grandpa clean out one of the old filing cabinets in the barn when I found it. A dusty blue binder labeled LLC Records. Inside were pages of old paperwork, including the original registration forms for the LLC my parents used to buy the house next door. It was dated 6 years ago, but something stood out. My dad wasn't listed as the sole owner. My mom was the majority stakeholder, which meant her claiming it was under Dad's name during that conversation. A lie, a deliberate one. I scanned the whole binder and uploaded the contents. Then I dug into the county tax assessor's portal and found that the property was listed under the LLC, but the mailing address on record wasn't even ours. It was my mom's old office building. Another lie. Another layer. They thought I wouldn't look. They really thought I'd just accept it. That same week, I visited a friend of Grandpa's, a retired estate attorney named Mr. Harlan. He still kept an office above the hardware store, mostly to avoid boredom. Grandpa trusted him. That was enough for me. I told him the situation. Not every detail. Just enough to raise the question. If someone wires money to a minor's savings account, and the legal guardian quietly moves it without informing the recipient, what are the options? Mr. Harlan leaned back in his squeaky chair and steepled his fingers. Well, technically, that's not just unethical. It's probably illegal, especially if it wasn't disclosed or documented. I nodded. What if the funds were used to purchase property under an LLC? He arched an eyebrow. Whose name is the LLC under? My mom and dad. And the wire was intended solely for you. From my grandfather. He told me. He has proof. Harlan exhaled slowly. You may have a case. Especially when you turn 18. I paused. What if I don't want to go nuclear? He smiled faintly. Then you start by applying pressure. Quietly. Letting them know you know. People like that, they're not afraid of consequences. They're afraid of being seen. I left that meeting with a folder of advice and a strange sense of calm. I wasn't alone anymore. Over the next few months, I kept working, saving, studying. Grandpa and I built out the back shed into a small office, just a desk, a Wi-Fi booster, and a refurbished laptop I'd upgraded myself. It became my war room. I started a small business refurbishing tools and farm equipment, listing them online with the help of a friend from school who was good at digital marketing. We split profits 70/30. By Christmas, I'd saved almost $10,000. I also started offering labor at discounted rates to neighbors and local businesses. Not glamorous, hauling lumber, cleaning gutters, fixing minor electrical issues. But every job taught me something. Every task gave me more independence. My parents didn't notice. Or if they did, they chalked it up to me finally growing up. Meanwhile, I fed them just enough to stay under the radar. Work's been busy. I'm saving up for a better laptop. Just thinking about community college, nothing crazy. They nodded, mildly impressed, but never asked too many questions. Why would they? In their eyes, I was still playing catch-up. Still the background character in Maddie's highlight reel. But the tide was shifting. It really started to turn when Grandpa got sick. It was subtle at first, missed appointments, forgetting small things. Then one day, he got lost driving home from the post office. The doctor said it might be early onset cognitive decline, maybe Parkinson's, maybe something worse. We didn't know yet, but we knew one thing for sure. He needed to get his affairs in order. That's when he called another family meeting. It happened at the farm, in the living room, just like the old days. Mom, Dad, Maddie, and me. Grandpa stood in front of the fireplace, hands shaking just slightly, holding a thick manila envelope. I wanted you all here, he began, because I'm making some changes. Mom tilted her head. Changes to what? To everything, he said. My will, my trusts, my power of attorney. Mom's smile faltered. Dad, we can help with all of that. There's no need to rush into legal decisions. I've already filed them, he said. These are just copies. She froze. Filed them with who? County, my lawyer. And Zach. He handed me the envelope. Inside was everything. The farm, the remaining assets, his medical directives, his revised will, and a notarized statement clarifying that the $100,000 wired to me had been a personal gift, not a loan, not a family investment. You could have heard a pin drop. Then Mom said the quiet part out loud. This is ridiculous. Grandpa didn't even flinch. No, what's ridiculous is stealing from your own son and pretending it was for his own good. Dad looked like he wanted to melt into the carpet. Maddie looked confused. Mom, though? She looked cornered. This is revenge, she hissed. You're punishing me for trying to protect this family. No, Grandpa said. I'm correcting a mistake. One I let go too long. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Not yet. After they left, after the yelling and the slammed door, Grandpa turned to me. They're going to come after this, he said, nodding toward the envelope. Find ways to twist it. But don't let them. You're smarter than they think. I nodded, gripping the papers like a shield. The next morning, I got an email from my mom. Just one line. We need to talk. You're making a serious mistake. I didn't reply. Instead, I called Mr. Harlan and asked him to double-check the documents. He said they were airtight. A week later, I filed to open my own LLC, under my name only. I transferred my tool refurb business to it and applied for a small business credit line using my savings as collateral. Approved. I ordered business cards. Zachary M. Thomas. Owner, Red Barn Restoration Company. Tools. Labor. Legacy. I left one on the kitchen counter one morning before heading out to the farm. That was the first time my dad actually looked at me like I was someone new. I didn't smile. I didn't brag. Because I wasn't done yet. The house next door, the one they stole my money to buy, it was almost ready. Renovations done. Maddie had already begun decorating it on Pinterest. My parents were floating the idea of moving her in during college. What they didn't know was that I'd been reading every clause in their LLC documents. I knew something they didn't. The final card was almost ready to play. And when I did, it wouldn't just be revenge. It would be a reckoning. The final move started with a knock on the front door. It was a Tuesday morning. Spring was settling in, the trees starting to bud, and the air smelled like wet soil and quiet tension. I knew my parents would be home. My mom worked part-time by then, some flexible remote gig with a local interior design firm, and my dad was still between roles, which meant wandering the house like a lost tourist. I timed everything perfectly. Mom answered the door with her usual fake warmth, expecting a neighbor or maybe a package delivery. Instead, she was greeted by a well-dressed woman in a blazer, carrying a clipboard and wearing a badge clipped to her lapel. Good morning, she said. Are you Mrs. Thomas? Yes, my mother answered slowly. My name is Claire Jensen. I'm with the county tax assessor's office. We've flagged a discrepancy in the ownership documents for the property located at 1139 West Holloway Lane, currently registered under an LLC managed by yourself and Mr. Thomas. I watched from my truck across the street. Windows cracked. Heart thudding. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I didn't need to. That was the spark. Here's how it all came together. While Grandpa's lawyer, Mr. Harlan, helped secure my legal standing over the farm and get everything in writing regarding the original $100,000 gift, I kept digging. Through public records, through the bylaws of their LLC, through real estate law, and I found something they'd overlooked. When my parents used my money to fund the purchase of the house next door, without any written consent, without documentation, without even disclosing the source of funds in the LLC's initial filing. They triggered a clause in the county's conflict of interest policy regarding trust-held contributions from minors. See, in layman's terms, any substantial sum contributed to an LLC from a trust or minor's account must be documented, and the minor must have representation. I wasn't represented, and I had proof. Wire records, trust confirmation from Grandpa. And the best part? Because the money came from outside their own joint funds, from my grandfather to me, and was repurposed into their LLC without disclosure, it created a breach of fiduciary duty, especially since they were the ones legally responsible for safeguarding my assets as guardians. In other words, they stole. And now, the county was investigating. After the visit from the assessor, everything unraveled fast. First came the calls, voicemails, messages. My mom left me 5 in 1 hour, ranging from fake concern to veiled threats. Zachary, this is your mother. We need to clear up this misunderstanding before it becomes a bigger issue. This is ridiculous. You don't understand how business works. Call me back. We raised you. We gave you everything. And this is how you repay us. I didn't respond. Not yet. Instead, I showed up 2 days later with Mr. Harlan at my side and a folder full of papers. We didn't meet at the house. That would have given them home field advantage. We met at the county mediator's office. Neutral ground. They looked tired, panicked. My mom had lost that practiced poise she always wore like a mask. Dad sat slumped, eyes darting between me and the documents. Maddie wasn't there. She still didn't know what was coming. I assume you're aware why we're here, Harlan began, his voice calm. My mom opened her mouth, but Harlan held up a hand. This won't take long. He laid out everything. The initial gift, the illegal transfer, the misuse of funds, the real estate filing error, the tax implications. My parents tried to deny it at first, claimed family money is shared and Zach didn't need it. But the law doesn't care about favoritism. The law only cares about paper trails. And I had the receipts. Harlan offered a deal. They could avoid formal charges and a full audit by signing over the house immediately. All of it. Title transfer. LLC dissolution. In exchange, I wouldn't pursue damages or back taxes. They stared at me like I was a stranger. This is extortion, my mom hissed. No, I said quietly. This is accountability. It took an hour, but they signed. I walked out of that building as the sole owner of 1139 West Holloway Lane. It was mine now, and I wasn't done. 2 days later, I met with a realtor and listed it for sale. Maddie came home from school that afternoon to find the sign in the yard. She burst into the house in tears, screaming, "Why is there a for sale sign on my house?" My parents tried to explain, tried to spin it, but I didn't let them. That weekend, I held a family meeting at the farm. My turf. They came, reluctantly. Maddie wouldn't speak to me. My mom looked like she hadn't slept. My dad just kept staring at the floor. I stood in front of the porch, papers in hand. This isn't just about the money, I said. It never was. It's about what you thought you could get away with. The way you made decisions without me. The way you looked at me like I was disposable. No one responded. I turned to Maddie. I don't blame you, I said. You didn't steal the money, but you benefited from it. And when I tried to speak up, you acted like I was jealous. Her eyes were red. You humiliated me. No, I said. You were building your future on stolen bricks. I just took them back. Then I turned to my mom. You always told me I was the one who needed to grow up, that I didn't understand how things worked. But it turns out, I understood better than you thought. I watched. I learned. And I built something, without you, from scratch. I laid the final paper on the porch railing. I've spoken with Grandpa's medical team. I've filed the documents. I am now his legal medical power of attorney and financial custodian. Her jaw dropped. You can't do that. I just did. She lunged forward, furious. You think you're better than us now? Because of some farm and a flipped house? No, I said. I know I am. Because I didn't need to lie or steal to get here. She backed off. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't curse. Didn't gloat. Because this wasn't about vengeance anymore. It was about peace. They left in silence. No dramatic outbursts. Just the sound of tires on gravel and a slammed car door. 3 months later, the house sold. I put most of the money into a separate trust. One that Grandpa helped me set up. A chunk went into the farm, where we built out a greenhouse and started a local produce business. Red Barn Restoration Company became Red Barn Living, tools, labor, and fresh-grown vegetables. Small but proud. Grandpa's condition stabilized for a while. We spent long afternoons watching storms roll in, sipping lemonade, and listening to old blues records. Sometimes, we didn't even talk. We didn't need to. Maddie and I haven't spoken since. My dad eventually emailed me a long, rambling message about regrets and family and how things got away from us. I read it. I didn't reply. My mom sent a birthday card 6 months later. Inside was $100 check. I mailed it back. No note. Just the check. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their validation. I had my name on a deed, a business license in my pocket, and a grandfather who looked at me with real pride. And for the first time in my life, I finally felt like I was home. They took my future without asking, so I built a new one without them.